Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly market update with David Prince, the leader of T3 Live's Inner Circle virtual trading floor. I'm Greta Wall, your host, and today we are going to be talking about a ton of topics from Amazon to Meta to Immunome to SMCI. So this will be a great discussion about the market. Hi, David. Thanks so much for joining me for this today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's just get right into our topics of the day. Where does Amazon go from here? So that's where we're going to start. How David Prince nailed that mega cap tech stock into earnings. So just a reminder for everyone that Amazon has been David's favorite Mag 7 stock throughout 2024. Back at the end of 2023, he pointed out this name as his favorite big cap tech stock heading into the new year. And that has remained throughout 2024 so far. So how you approached Amazon into earnings, you sent out this tweet before the earnings report or after the earnings report had been released saying I was up quite a bit into the print. Someone asked, why don't you personally do a call spread? And you said, I know myself, and it would be more painful to see 175 than if my options go to zero, then it went to 174. If I have a thesis, I'd rather be in it as it plays out than cap my upside. Just me, some are more inclined to lock in gains. And as we know, Amazon had a huge gap up after the earnings report. You can see that gap here from Thursday into Friday's open. So, David, walk us through how you navigated Amazon after or before and after the earnings print.
Once I saw in after hours 172 through 174, I basically boxed my position by shorting a lot of stock. And we actually had a pullback after hours to 167. It pulled back so drastically, I covered some of that. And we bounced to 171, 172, and kind of capped my gains by shorting the stock in the aftermarket. And then got flat most everything by covering my short, by selling my calls. About the first hour when we were near 71, 72. And then what I did was to use some of those gains. I really want to still be in Amazon on a small pullback intraday. I went with some monthly calls because I figured it might take some time and might have pullbacks. The whole market's overbought. And I bought monthly calls, which were up 30%. Now they're probably down 40%. So I'm kind of flattish to down small on them. But I believe after a rest period, Amazon, which is still off almost exactly 10% from all-time highs, still has some room to the upside. Just has to kind of really absorb these gains. And although it was a really strong quarter, it wasn't quite Meta-esque. So it can trade. It's trying to hold the gap low from after earnings, which if it gets beneath, it might go a little bit lower. I think after the market rests, this will go to that 188 spot, which was all-time highs. So I'm playing it via calls, and if it pulls back enough, I'll be in the stock again too.
Do you have any type of target for where you think this stock has room to go?
188, the previous highs. I really think it gets there, and eventually, if we look out 3 to 4 months and we're actually talking about real rate cuts, not hope of rate cuts, then I think put a 200 number on it, especially because cash flow continues to grow. AWS was strong. Advertising is a monster business. So, and if you turn on your TV, you'll see you're now watching Amazon Prime with advertisements unless you pay an extra $2 or $3. So he's doing everything right to really increase profitability.
All right, great. All right, you mentioned that Amazon wasn't quite Meta's earnings report. So let's talk about Meta. Meta also had a huge gap up after earnings, just like Amazon, but even larger, jumping from that $400 range to $450 at the open the next day. We won't talk about that yet. So talk about your reaction though to Meta's earnings report.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting what happened with Meta.
So what I did, it's funny, a friend of mine that evening said, because we owned Meta under 100, not more than a year ago, maybe 11, 12 months. And he said, oh, I don't think I could look at Meta again. And I said to my friend, his name's Naveed, I said, oh, you'll be looking at it tomorrow. When we short it, you'll probably make 10 points. He said, okay. So that morning, I basically said, listen, Numbers are great. This is a very profitable company. It's a cash flow machine, but there's probably for a short-term trade, very kind of robotic, systematic short you can do. And if it opens up, creates a range, trades underneath the lows of the day, right from the open, there's probably going to be a good short in it. And you have to be quick and you have to be fast. So bottom line, into the gap open at 461, 462, I shorted. I added 459. And it was fast. By 454 or so, we covered. And that was it. We made our 6-7 points. We're short. Now, do I want to be short Meta? No. In fact, over the weekend, I think you were about to put it up. I said, listen, it's pretty obvious to me that all the pullbacks in Meta for the first week or two are going to be bought. It's just the nature of the beast. You have so much FOMO. You also have a dividend, which it just encompasses a whole new group of investors that previously couldn't buy it because it's in their mandate. They have to have a dividend. So for a multitude of reasons, I said, it's so overbought, I expect a pullback, 10, 15 points. And if we get one, it's probably a great Q trade. Yesterday, it pulled back almost exactly 15 points. I think it was 14 points. We bought it. I didn't just start at the exact low, but that's where I sized up about between 361, 362. Intraday, we went all the way to almost 369. I think our best play on that was we actually bought weekly calls. When we got to near the lows of the day, we bought the 470s and made like 50% on those, sold most of the stock. And that's where we are. Went home long overnight. I was pretty small. I added some on that week close yesterday. keep saying 3. I got to get used to 400s. 462. It gapped open this morning pre-market. 465 through 7. I was trimming most of my position again. And now I'm small. I think it, again, needs time to absorb the move. And more than anything, I'm pretty bearish the overall market. I came in today, less positions, short SMCI, I'm sure we'll talk about, with QQQ puts. I'm not trying to call a top, but I feel very comfortable saying there's more risk than reward. At this exact moment, we need to breathe. That's my call.
I do have just everything showing those Meta calls. You did do these Meta calls for your Epic Trade service, which is your options trading service through T3 Live. So just here's a look at how that trade kind of, for everyone, followed how that trade played out. So you sent out the first alert to buy the 470 calls, the weekly calls at 460 or better. Your first trim was to sell half the position at 560 or better. Then you said to trim again another quarter at 595 or better. And then you closed them by the end of the day yesterday, selling at 620 or better. So again,
when most people got that, just to be honest about it, it was like 660 or 670. Right. So we like to give the low, but it was higher.
Yeah.
And definitely. Weekly options are, I don't want to say cowboyish, but they're, high risk. So I don't mind missing some upside. So we saw it. I said, this is a great trade. I don't know what it nets us, 35% or something fast. I'm done. And that's what we did.
All right, great. And then this is just, again, a look at the chart. You bought down here at 430, sold half at 560, sold that other quarter at 595 or better. Of course, these are, again, like David said, the low thresholds for selling, and then sold that final quarter way up here at 630. So great trade for Epic Trades, great trade for David, great trade for those who followed that service. And you said this on Twitter, you said Meta, it did go down 14 and voila, had a strong bounce. It was a focus today and not easy. So what would you say made it not easy to do for you on Monday?
I'm pretty good at entries. Like I've always said, I'm better than most at entries. I tend to sell too soon. So when I give a downside level and I start, we often don't get to the worst level. This was one of those times where I said, we might go 361, 362. We actually went there and we actually went to 360. And it basically was weaker than the entire market for good reason. It was up over 20% the day before. So as the market rallied, we kept lagging and lagging and lagging and making you think maybe the lows aren't in. And then we kind of got through what was an intraday resistance, which was in the 364.5 area. And once we got through there, we popped another 3. But it made you guess, hey, am I in the right stock? Maybe we're too early because, quite frankly, the NASDAQ was rallying hard. And whenever it was, Meta was like, yeah, I'm not interested in this rally. So it took some time. And therefore I had to second guess because I could be wrong. And thank God I wasn't on this, but it took a little longer than normal.
All right. All right. For everyone who is with us here live, just a reminder that the comments are open. So if you have any questions for David Prince throughout this on YouTube or Twitter or here in the webinar with us, go ahead and submit those in the chat and we'll make sure he addresses them as they come up. All right. Let's get an update on IMNM. Immunome. You've been talking about this stock since late 2023. This morning you sent out this tweet, said Clay, who is the CEO founder of, or the CEO rather of Immunome, Clay making moves, Immunome to acquire AL102, which is a phase 3 asset for the treatment of desmoid tumors from Ayala Pharmaceuticals. The stock is up nearly 30% today, so it is obviously moving. It's moving for lots more people than just David Prince. But just give us an update on the stock and what you're seeing.
So just to cut to the chase, as I've explained, we've been in this for a very long time. My partner was one of the largest shareholders, or probably still is. And Clay was someone we really believed in. And Clay is the previous founder and CEO of Seagen. And he's really trying to recreate the same magic here, which is, in short, buying unloved assets, or let's say underutilized assets in the biotech industry, and turning, let's say, ants into giants. He really has a talent for taking certain smaller assets that people may be ignoring or not taking full advantage of them, and frankly, turning them into $100 million, if not billion-dollar opportunities in the biotech market. So today he goes out and he does that all over again by spending $20 million, including some stock. And he is taking an asset that will work against tumors in the cancer area. And it's something that's already in phase 3. So the market's very excited because this is not preclinical. This is phase 3. And this, I mean, I'm kind of bewildered because this is wild. The stock is up 26%. But long story short, we're in this for as low as 6, 5, 4. I'm in this long term. This is still a tiny little company to have one of the godfathers, at least in my eyes. Clay's a godfather of biotech, and I think this is just the beginning. However, like I like to tell everyone, when you have these types of gains, because most people that follow me are up hundreds of % in this, you do trim some. It's been a massive move, but this is a company with plenty of cash. They're putting the cash to use into assets at prices that I think will turn out to be dirt cheap. And obviously the market agrees with me today. So it's a special day.
We did get a question about Immunome from Twitter. D. Ramsey asked, as someone not in it, what do you think is a good entry point?
Is this David, did you say, or Mark?
D. Ramsey.
D. Ramsey. So
David?
D. Ramsey, you might have missed it. I'm a little bit conservative. I'm not the guy who says buy high and hope the next sucker buys higher. You're going to need to see a pullback. And by the way, I think it's going much higher, but I just can't in my right mind tell you when I was buying more of this at 7 and 8 and 9, that today at $21, you have a deal. Now, if you are someone who's looking out a year or two down the road, you have the man who runs this company built Seagen, not someone else. It was all him. It was all Clay. And it was obviously a multi-billion-dollar takeout. So let's just say this is 1/10 that. Well, this stock could be 40, 50, 60 one day. But I'm going to say you want to see it breathe and come into, I don't know, let's call it 17, 20 area before you get too excited. It's come far. So it needs to breathe.
Okay.
But I'm also conservative, right? That's just who I am.
Okay. RB on Twitter, you asked about Palantir. We're going to get to Palantir just a little bit. And we have a couple other questions that we'll get to as well. So everyone just hang tight. We just want to kind of get through some of these other topics because some of these might answer some questions. All right. So David, let's talk about SMCI. You are still active in SMCI, but kind of on the other side of the stock than you were at the beginning. So on Friday, you started buying puts on this stock. And here's a look at just Friday's trade. You bought those around 9:34 a.m. Eastern, trimmed, and went flat by the end of by 30 minutes later. And then yesterday, you were shorting SMCI. So you went home actually a small short on SMCI overnight, and then you were covering and trimming that this morning. So talk about what your game plan is with SMCI at this point. The stock has obviously been still out of control, but you've kind of been playing it on the shorter side not long. How has that been for you?
Frank answer, glorious. So last night there was news that a board member bought an additional 2,000 shares. The guy owns 43,000 shares, and he added 2,000 shares at 568. Well, it's the number one Momo stock out there, so it goosed the stock even higher. So I had some puts overnight, but I was hoping for an up open to really dig into the stock and get short, because I felt that over the next 24, 48 hours, we'd have an exhaustion gap, because I'm old and I've seen this a million times. Now, SMCI is a great company. It's my number one position at 340. But what I saw yesterday was a little bit of insanity, reading Twitter, people telling me I'm an idiot to short and it's the most important thing. And people's grandmothers were probably calling them about it. It had all the signs of insanity, and obviously all about NVIDIA. So after hours, I saw it traded high of 690. I shorted between 685 and 687. I said, I don't know if I wake up and it's still here, so I got to be short. Today we got flat. People from the chat are on, so they can correct me, but I think I got flat in my stock short at, say, 648, 650. And the way I looked at it, and I told the chat this, and I had puts, I said, listen, this is the craziest stock in the market. I can't tell you that's the top. No one can. And if they do, like, ignore them, because that guy's a liar. Or that woman's a liar. So if we just made the equivalent of almost 40 points from top to bottom on some of your stock, just cover it, because shorts have gotten, their lives are over. Like, people who are short this, heavy short interest. So I'm not worried about catching the bottom. So I covered, held some puts, and then recently when the puts went up a lot and the stock was about where it is now, 638, I got flat my puts, and I'll live to play another day. And now what I'm much more interested in is figuring out a healthy level to buy NVIDIA on this pullback. It's probably not today, because I think we have a greater pullback, but I saw insanity. It's not for everyone. And our chat is, bigger traders, some small institutions, funds. So these people can handle it. But I told people, listen, if you're not used to this, you can't average into a position. If you gotta take a loss because you're down 10, you do not short a stock like SMCI. This is big boys and girls only. And thank God it worked out. It's when here's how I look at things. If you're long a stock like this, when it's 340 and it's trading at 16 times earnings, growing 100% a year, you can afford to stay patient and let it go up hundreds of points. When you're shorting it, I don't play that way. We are in the greatest bull market I've seen in a long time. So we take our profits, we move on. Now I'm going to let it breathe. I have no opinion. I'm going to just let it breathe a bit, be paying attention to NVIDIA, which is going to dictate the action.
All right. So you say you're looking for a good point to buy NVIDIA on the pullback. Do you have any idea of where that point might be for you?
No, but everyone can kind of look at some simple guidance, which is the 8 and 10 day. Now, will we pull all the way back to? I don't know, but stocks that are very bullish still tend to touch their 8 and 10 day. So the closer we get to the 8 and 10 day, the more liable I am to buy it. The 8 and 10 day presently are 641 through 635. So my gut is they're moving up slowly. The stock's coming down. Maybe they meet somewhere at about 650 for a Q trade. I would never be all in NVIDIA. If you think it's time to go all in, we manage money differently. That was when it crossed 500 and had this enormous breakout. But for a starter, if you want to buy in thirds or halves, as it catches up to the 8 and 10 day, that's probably a good spot.
All right, great. All right, so last week was the kind of Super Bowl week for the market with the Fed and all the big tech stock earnings, and then the jobs report at the end. So earnings this week, they're a little quieter, but still some important names reporting. One of those being Eli Lilly this morning, beating on both the top and bottom line. Stock was rallying pre-market, but is actually down now. Jim Cramer has pointed out that Lilly has a lot of strength and should replace Tesla in the Mag 7. What are your thoughts on Lilly's earnings report and the strength of the stock
all phenomenal. Everything's great. It's the type of action we actually saw the day after an SMCI where it gapped up 40 or 50 and at one point was down or flat on the day. This is normal profit taking needs to breathe. It gapped into the print after kept trying to break out from that lower 600 area. It did. Rick on our chat, one of the moderators and dear friend, he had it and it was a big winner. And I think he told us, and I can see it via him, he trades it more than I do. It just needed a rest. So I think this is a simple sell the good news. Absolutely nothing wrong. And if someone's long-term on it, they'll probably find a spot to buy more because, well, I mean, it looks like the whole world's going to be on this drug one day. I know personally between 10, at least a minimum of 10, maybe as many as 20 people that tell me. I mean, half the people that take these drugs don't tell you that take this drug. And a lot of them, like, their lives are changed. These are people who have lost 30, 40 pounds, who didn't breathe as well, I mean, let's face it, this is not just going to go away. This is changing people's lives forever. So I'm sure it'll be a buy yet again. It just needs to breathe, ran up into the print, selling off, par for the course. If you're in the stock market, there's nothing new here. It's all good, just needs to rest.
Do you agree with Kramer's take that this should replace Tesla in the Mag 7?
I don't even have an opinion on it. I don't have an opinion. Is it a bigger, better growth story, in my opinion, over the next 12 months? Sure. If you were to look out 3-4 years, I actually would prefer Tesla probably. But today, over the next 12 months, he's probably right. But I don't really care. Right? So, I mean, not to sound rude about it, I don't have much of a serious opinion on it.
All right. Other earnings that we've gotten so far. Palantir we got after hours yesterday, in line on the profits, but beating on revenue. The stock is up over 24% today. This is a look at the chart heading into today's session. Doesn't include today's jump. And give me your thoughts on Palantir. Somebody had asked on Twitter for your take on Palantir as well. So we'll answer their question too.
Sure. So into the print, I was pretty bullish. Told a bunch of people it's probably a good call play. I said I don't love the CEO. He's a little crazy, and I don't even know if I love the stock, but I like the stock into the print. And I always try and explain to people how you play an earnings play doesn't mean you have to like a company. It just means you have to think you can get paid. So there were a lot of people on my chat in the calls. I think they went up 300-400%. And then it turns out that real good things are happening. Two of the basic factors that are really taking the stock higher are free cash flow, which is a hell of a lot more important than the, let's just say, face value numbers that you look at. The headline numbers don't really tell you as much. Free cash flow is going up, and he's talking a big game. And then maybe more importantly, they're government dependent, and they're talking about many more commercial company customers being really a big growth area. So the market loves it. And I think this gap holds, and eventually it'll probably get through that resistance high of 22. I'm not looking at it right now, but really strong number. I imagine it's a buy on all dips for a bit. Where are we now? Palantir. So yeah, I doubt we're going to get back under that 19 and change high, low from today, and probably in time gets through that high and works its way up 24, 25. But it was overdue. It was a perfect setup, right? So you have a company that's coming into cash flow positive, talking about free cash flow, 20% off. It was actually maybe a little bit more than 20%. It was almost 30% off recent highs. So it really set up well for the print, and it makes sense that it's working and probably not done.
One of Inner Circle's favorite trades with earnings is, of course, the day after trade. So today we have this huge move in Palantir after the earnings last night. Are you looking at any type of second day setup for tomorrow?
I am not, but if I do, I'll share it with people. I believe my partner Rick bought some on the dip a little while ago as we pulled back mid 2050 to 60ish. So I think he's in it. I have yet to look at it. I'm again, as I've been kind of screaming to my chat and to people on Twitter, I'm just really hesitant. Not a big fan of the market here. I'd like to see us pull back. In fact, one of my biggest winners today were 426 puts on the Qs. So I'm letting the market breathe, even on good numbers. That we've come far, so we can slice through a low and then recapture that low. The point is, I'm not in a rush to put on a lot of longs here. Very intermittently specific setup, sure, but I think the market needs to come in a bit.
Okay. Before we start, or before we get into the overall market, let's answer some questions. Saudha asked for your thoughts on where Amazon will end the year. I asked you earlier, kind of what is your target for the stock? Where do you see it going? But maybe where do you see it by the end of the year?
Oh, I'm the worst with that. I'm not smart enough to know where the hell we're going to be 12 months from now. But I do think at some point this year, we go to 188, 200, especially if we actually do start to cut rates by summer and we get 3. If we get 4, then I think we're above 200. But I love Andy, the CEO. The guy's a rock star. AWS is, it's the company that started it all. It's their profit engine, and I think we'll get there. And like I said, there's meat on the bone. This, like a Palantir, it has been a perennial underperformer, but it's a more important company, obviously, than Palantir. And for 2 years, it underperformed all its peers. So I think this year it has much more to run. But what I like to say is price is what matters, not time. So if we went to 220 by summer, I'd probably be not in it any longer. So where we end the year, I don't know. It's where can we potentially go during this year? I don't know where the hell we end, though. That I can assure you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Benjamin from Twitter said, "Hey, David, he interested in your opinion on XBI IWM here for a short-term rally."
Sure. Everyone's like wants IWM to rally. I'm trying not to overthink things. In short, we've been told that we're not getting interest rate cuts and it's not happening to the summer. Most of these companies are either barely profitable or in many cases not profitable and carry a lot of debt. So should IWM really go up? No. Is it going up today? Yes. Why is it going up? Rotation. People are finally selling some big caps, taking money out of NVIDIA and taking money out of SMCI. And I know it's a small cap, but it's a big cap in reality. The point is they're taking some money out of leading tech stocks. I mean, look at the semis, almost everyone's down, and they're putting it into small caps. But for a sustained rally, my gut is this, and I don't like to think too long term, but this is how I see it. We need to get to about March where we don't have a rate cut. Then people start to front run rate cuts in the summer, and then IWM can have an extended rally and really actually get off its butt and have a continued move towards that 200, 205 area where we topped out. So I think it's going to be like these rallies are false rallies. People get chopped up and we don't really have a ton of a move there till the market comes in. But today makes sense to me. People want to make some money. So they're taking, big cap money and throwing it in. I just don't know if it lasts. That's my opinion. I think it's more acute money. On XBI, I want to mention something. It holds really well, even when the IWM's been down. I think, right, it's hard because there are a lot of small cap companies here. But I think people understand there are a lot of companies trading pennies on the dollar that are going to get taken out. There have been more mergers in a 6-month period than we've seen in forever in biotech. And I'm actually looking for biotech to separate itself a little bit from IWM and outperform. So I'm a bit more bullish near term on XBI than I am IWM, which is why I'm still long XBI and not IWM. When I saw, I guess it was last week, I saw 195 on some big rally we had, and I said, I'm done with this. So I think we'll see a little bit of relative strength. And the reason why is there are these deals like Immunome we're seeing, we've seen several takeouts. We're seeing kind of leadership expand in the group. I think Rick was talking about, AXSM has been on a monster run. So I think biotech can do a little bit better than IWM. Neither can be leadership type stocks till we get closer to rate cuts. And my dumb opinion, because I'm not an economist, but that's how I see it.
All right. Brian wants your thoughts on China stocks.
Sure, Brian. You sure you want to ask me? Because I bought BABA at 72 on Friday, and like a schmuck, I sold it for $3 yesterday, and now I'm kind of dumb. But it makes sense. It's time. I mean, if you believe the numbers and you think they're not all fraudulent, and I don't say that jokingly because some are, let's face it, you got to think China is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at their economy to try and get their stock market and their economy in better shape. So I get the rally, and I gut as it continues. I took some profits in Bob. I've been in it, I guess, for about 3 weeks, and it's been pretty profitable to me. Keep buying the 71, 72s and selling when it gets to 75. This time I got burned being out, but I might be in BABA for the print. BABA, Baidu, two of my favorites. If you got to be in China, but just because I feel like I missed the real one, the Temu one, PDD. But overall, if you don't mind owning something that is, let's just face it, it's had more false starts than anything I've seen in history, it feels like it's time. It's just, I will never dedicate like real money to a Chinese stock because I've seen too many where the CEO takes the money and they close up shop and they're done. So I will only put speculative money into a Chinese equity.
Okay. Eric from Twitter, or I guess X is what I should be saying, not Twitter, but just. But he wants to know what you think about Google.
The way I look at this? Here's how I look at it. If you're looking out 6 to 12 months, totally get why you would buy a Google. If I always look at things like everyone has only a certain amount of money to work with. Then there's some of us who have endless money and we can do whatever the hell we want. We sit on too much cash, which I do sometimes. So you don't have to worry about what you buy. But let's face it, most people only have so much money to allocate to stocks. And the way I look at it is there's easier trades. But if you're building a leadership portfolio, it's not going anywhere. I think AI works. I think cloud we saw was actually the good part of it. I know advertising was a bit soft. If I'm looking out long-term, it feels like a stock I'd buy here. Would I be excited about it like I was when I bought Google under 100, last year at some point? I wouldn't be excited, but it's a stock to own long-term. Near-term, so much easier I'd be interested in with real growth that just excites me more.
Okay. And then Dan from Facebook said, not sure if you talked about Tesla. Do you think it's bottomed?
Hey, Dan. So a bunch of people on my chat, including Kira and Rick, who run Inner Circle with me, were short the stock and had puts this morning. The first thing I said on my morning call was, hey, I know it's broken. And by the way, I think it's going longer term, maybe to that 152 spot. And if it doesn't hold that 144, but near term, it's trading at 22 relative strength. And the last thing you want to do is initiate a short here. It's likely to bounce. So I was so busy shorting SMCI and I had a lot of Meta that was up early. So my point was I wasn't interested in buying it, but I kind of thought it would turn today, and I warned the chat to cover their shorts. Do I think this is an absolute low? I'm going with no. I get it. Everyone loves Tesla, and the guy is one of the smartest men that there ever was. But overall, here's what I see. I see a market where we are really top heavy. We are due a 5-7% correction. So just simple logic. If Amazon's going to pull back and Nvidia is going to pull back, is all of a sudden Tesla going to go up 20? It just doesn't make that much sense to me. So I don't think today is the absolute low. But if you ask me today, should I go long Tesla for a Q trade, maybe buy some calls for the week or cover my short? I would have said yes. I told the chat, cover your shorts. It's a 22 RSI, and historically it always bounces when it gets that low. But beyond that, I don't think this is an absolute low. I just think we want the economy to slow down. We're hoping it slows down. That doesn't help them. Interest rates aren't being cut, so they're still heavy. And we know that, well, let's face it, people need to finance these cars. It's not like everyone's going to pay cash. The Cybertruck's cute, but it's not going to add anything to earnings. The guy's obviously being attacked by WSJ. I go back and I always think, unless you have tons of money just to spread out and buy $30 million different equities, there's something easier out there that'll go up faster and quicker. But if, again, you're dollar cost averaging and you're looking out a year or two and you tell me you want to buy Tesla here, I got no problem. And by the way, I bought Tesla. My wife bought Tesla a year ago at 107. So I'm sure I'll be in there again too. But I'm just not excited here.
All right, great. Ryan?
Annoying, but can we move through this quicker? Not just only so I can.
Yeah, we're almost to the end here. Yeah, we're on our last question, and then
MDB is a good one.
Yeah.
One of
So
the best.
Ryan wants your thoughts on MDB from X.
Sounds good. So Ryan, I'm not a chartist, but I read charts as well as the next guy. Just don't write them. That's like a woo chart, right? That's a really special one. Everyone sees it. I've always loved the company. It's been a huge winner for me, and it's actually holding up pretty well even in today's action. Not like just getting crushed, but bottom line, the breakout above 440 that kept going, that's not working. But I want to explain why I wouldn't be too worried. Look at, well, on my screen, you could look at Broadcom. Big target move higher. Kramer talked about it this morning. It loses its bid this morning. MDB, I told everyone this morning, and we've had a wild couple of weeks. Everyone's like, where am I buying this back? And where am I doing that? And my answer has always been, for the last 2 days, just put it in your pocket, take a deep breath. I am not really a fan of the market here, and you can't chase. I think that MDB breakout does happen, but you have to give yourself time. So I think what everyone wanted today, which was partially influenced by Kramer talking about the chart via Dan Fitzpatrick, I think it actually comes to fruition. That gap and go comes. It just wasn't today because the market's ahead of itself. And as I like to say, I don't care what stock you own. If it's a sell-off in tech, and we don't have a sell-off in tech, but if it's a sour day for tech and they're selling tech, I don't care what stock, eventually they all get affected. So I think it's more a function of the market today than MDB. High growth company, great numbers, hasn't missed a quarter in forever. If they can take NVIDIA to 700, this is overdue to break out of this range, and it's quite a range. It's built a base up here. I think it's 3. This is going to be the 4th time it's failed up here. So when it finally gets through that 440-ish, you can say 436. I'm not looking at the chart, but I know it's 436 to 442. When it finally gets through that and closes, I think there's like an easy 20, 30 points. It's just today wasn't the day for that.
All right, great. All right. So David, as we wrap things up here, I just want to talk about the overall market sentiment. Really great audience questions from all the different platforms. So thank you everyone for all of those. But really right now, the sentiment, of course, is about the Fed. The Fed is remaining cautious. We all know Chairman Jerome Powell said no rate cut in March on Wednesday after the FOMC decision. Then we got a hot January jobs report on Friday. 353,000 versus 185,000 expectations. Talk about a hot jobs report. Powell reiterated his stance about waiting in his 60 Minutes interview on Sunday. Nothing, he didn't really say anything new during that
boring
interview.
And pointless an interview I can remember.
Yeah. And then this week, we have several Fed speakers who are on the calendar between today, tomorrow, Thursday. Lots of Fed speakers, but we expect them to kind of say the exact same thing he said last week. We're waiting for more evidence that inflation is down to 2% and that the labor market is actually starting to cool. You tweeted out pre-market yesterday saying it's nice to see the futures red for a change. As I've mentioned previously, the buy high, sell higher game gets old. No rate cuts till summer, yields higher. February is usually a rough month. Hot jobs numbers, including the JOLTS report, all spell time for a breather. I'm sure we will find buying opportunities as always. Less is more. Look forward to more short positions as well. So how are you feeling about the overall market sentiment where we're at this point?
I'm feeling like I look smart. That's a cool tweet. I forgot I wrote that. So I'm joking, everyone. But I think the market, the way I look at it, we're in this like insane game of, we know they're going to cut rates. We got to get in front of it because once they do, it's going to be 3 or 4 times. It's just a matter of if it's all in the same year of 2024, and we have to be on the right side of it. And I think we're just too far ahead of playing that game of front running rate cuts. And if valuation does matter, and valuation always matters more when rates aren't 0 and they're no longer 0. So I think we have an economy that's hanging in there. I'm actually shocked. Like, thank God I'm not an economist because I'd be homeless. I would have thought the shock system would have been much stronger than this. We're hanging in there, but I do think we slow down. I do think the housing market continues to get worse, not better. It's just something I believe in. I think it has further downside ahead, and that maybe the market will just trend sideways to lower for the next 3-4 weeks until we get a real report that says, whoa, we are finally really slowing down. I don't know if it comes through jobs. I don't know if it's a blow up, and I don't think NYCB is the big blow up that everyone has to worry about. I think that's more of a specific situation due to acquisitions they made. So I think it's time for a rest, and I think the economy holds up, but it's still going too slow. Does that answer your question? I forgot all the points, but
yeah. All right, great. All right, David. So everyone, of course, knows David is an actual real-time trader. He does this every single day, day in and day out. So we do need to let him get back to the market. It is 12:40, so we got him for 40 minutes here. A great discussion about a range of stocks. So thank you so much for this today, David. For everyone who is with us, you can go to t3live.com/DP to get David's free ebook, The Hedge Fund Black Book. And we will be back again next week to talk about everything he's going to do for the rest of this week and beginning of next. So everyone, be sure to join us for that. David, have a great rest of your trading day.
thanks for joining all. Appreciate it. Thanks, Greta.